Venezuela, you should have also received the press release in English and in Spanish. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, voices his deep concern over the high and continuing number of arbitrary detentions, as well as disproportionate use of force reported in the aftermath of the presidential elections in Venezuela, and the resulting climate of fear. It is especially troubling that so many people are being detained, accused, or charged, either with incitement to hatred or under counterterrorism legislation. Criminal law must never be used to limit unduly the rights to freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, and association. According to official statements, over 2,400 people have been arrested since the 29th of July. This figure includes the arbitrary detention of protesters, human rights defenders, adolescents, people with disabilities, members of the opposition, or those perceived to be connected to them, as well as people who serve as electoral observers accredited by opposition parties in polling stations. In most of the cases documented by our office, the detainees have not been allowed to appoint lawyers of their choice or to have contact with their families. Some of these cases would amount to enforced disappearances. The High Commissioner calls for the immediate release of everyone who has been arbitrarily detained and for fair trial guarantees for all detainees. The disproportionate use of force by law enforcement officials and the attacks on demonstrators by armed individuals supporting the government, some resulting in deaths, must not be repeated. There have also been reports of acts of violence against public officials and public buildings by some demonstrators. The High Commissioner stresses that violence is never the answer. All deaths in the context of protests must be investigated and those responsible held accountable in line with due process and fair trial standards. Lists of people who are wanted for allegedly promoting violence are also set to be circulating on social media, including of members of the opposition and journalists. These are very worrying. There are also calls by the authorities to file complaints against those involved in alleged criminal acts, including legitimate activities, such as participating in public affairs, demonstrating peacefully, or exercising the right to freedom of expression. We're also concerned at the potential adoption of the Bill on Oversight, Regularization, Performance and Financing of NGOs and related organizations, as well as the Bill against Fascism, Neo-Fascism, and similar expressions. We urge the authorities to refrain from adopting these and any laws that undermine civic and democratic space in the country, in the interest of social cohesion and the future of the country. We are also worried that some individuals have had their passports suspended, which seems to be an act of reprisal for their legitimate work in the country. All this is exacerbating tensions and further fragmenting the social fabric of Venezuela. The international community has a fundamental role to promote inclusive dialogue with human rights of all Venezuelans at heart. And as always, our office stands ready to assist.
Thank you very much, Ravina. I see Lisa has a question.